It has become a tradition that every year or every end of the year I do video on my own setup and what has changed in the last year. And since we only have few days of the year left, let's see what has changed in my setup in the last 365 days. But as always, before we start with today's video, I really would like to thank all the people that are supporting me on the YouTube channel and have become my YouTube channel members. Thank you all for all of your wonderful support. And thanks to everybody who subscribed, watched, or liked my videos. If you too want to support the channel, you can do so by clicking the join button down below. And now let's see what has changed in my setup. When I started with my Home Assistant adventures, I installed it on a Synology, and I was running it like that for a long time. But I was running it inside Docker. In 2020, I opted for the HACS package that was produced or maintained by Frederique. But unfortunately, 2021 brought an end to this community package and I had to move. Where did I migrate? Once again to Synology, but this time I wasn't using Docker, although I am still using Docker on my Synology. Instead, I went for the virtual machine manager. This migration from the HACS package to the virtual machine manager coincided with the new Synology DS920 Plus that I received from Synology. It was more of a barter. I do video for them and they gave me this device. This DS920 Plus is currently running with 20GB of RAM, meaning 4GB that are internal plus one 16GB module. But if you are doing something like that, you have to be careful because not all RAM modules are supported. And if you put a module that is not supported, your Synology may not boot at all, or you may experience problems while running it. And with that migration, I freed my 415 Plus Synology. And what I did, I opted to use this device, the older device, as my recording setup. Previously, I was using Intel Nuke, but it was failing and I was unable to repair it. Now, both of my setups, primary for my home and the secondary for recording and testing, are Synology DS devices, and both of them run Virtual Machine Manager. As I mentioned previously, I also have some Docker left running. Bitwarden or Vault Warden Password Manager, Facebox for face recognition, Grafana is here, MQTT is not running as add-on, it is running directly on the Synology inside Docker, Prometheus, Storage Node and Storage Exported are all related. My storage node is pushing data to Prometheus and then I'm using Grafana to display current data for my storage node. I also have Unify controller, which is something new as I migrated from other devices to Unify network. Currently my Unify ecosystem consists of one 16-port PoE switch and two Unify 6 access points. One is long range and the other one is light. Also there is Wireshark, but I'm not using it anymore. SmokePing is used, but I haven't seen the stats for a very long time. So let's jump into Home Assistant. On the outside, maybe not much has changed. Yes, there are some new tabs here and here also, but more or less I've kept the user interface similar to what I had last year. Some things did of course change. Last year I finished with the 2021.12, I believe, .7 version of Home Assistant. This was the last release of the 2020. And at the time of recording, I'm running version 2021.12.5, although 2021.12.6 was released just last night. On the main screen, what I did, I just optimized a user interface a bit. I've also added this card here. It allows me to see, by the floors, how many lights or switches on each of the floor is currently on. This is just showing the switches that are on. From other changes on my main screen, I also added the ability to run the video directly from Home Assistant. If I would press play, it would start streaming the latest video or the video up here to my Google Display device. On the weather tab, of course, there is a custom weather template sensor, which I also recorded previously video on. This one is pulling partial data from the AccuWeather and other data is pulled from the sensors around my apartment. One thing also I've added, because it has become available recently, is this custom card from the HACS that allows me to display warnings from a metal alarm, which were previously displayed here, in a much nicer form. Everything else here remained the same. I'm still using same particle matter sensors for measuring both 2.5 and 10, and this is of course a Luftdaten sensor. On the lights card, not much has changed, except there are some new devices. And as you can see, we now have 5 LEDs, WLEDs, that I can control from Home Assistant. This is both my 3D printer, my current stream desk or desk I'm currently sitting on, stairs and rise lights were something that I also had last year, plus the ledge. This allowed me to push more customizable lights all over the apartment for the Christmas and holiday season. But these are not the only WLED lights in the apartment. Each of my kids has its own WLED strip in their room. So let's talk about the kids section. Each of the kids' rooms received its own user interface. And what has changed in this user interface since the last year? Well, some of the lights did, which is not that important, but there are two additional things. One is the Xiaomi Mosquito. Each of the rooms has a Xiaomi Smart Mosquito Repellent, and it's connected via the ESP Home or ESP32 by the Bluetooth, and I receive or pull data from that mosquito repellent to the Home Assistant. That way, I cannot control it, but I can see the status of the tablet or the chemical inside and the status of the battery and, of course, if the device is turned off or not. Mi body composition scale is something that I will definitely have to work more in the 2022. I currently only pull data and there is very primitive integration through the ESP32 Bluetooth once again, where I pull the data and if it matches certain kilogram range, then it gets assigned to specific family member. The biggest problem with this one is unfortunately that it doesn't keep the data between the restarts. So this is something that I also have to tackle. But it does work. For example, if I would now weight myself, this would be visible here as the last weight taken, but also assigned to me. My oldest daughter also has a plant sensor, and this is that BME 280 sensor on the HiGrow board, and this is now the only board in my apartment that is running Pessor's firmware. I'm currently working on a version of the ESP Home firmware that would allow you to easily change it, manipulate, upgrade or whatever, which can be a bit of problem for the noobs or people starting with the Arduino. The other daughter's room looks the same, mosquito, weight, everything else is here. We have information, is the school online or not, what week is it the tomorrow or today a work day or school day, and how many days are left until the school is finished for this year, and how many days ago did the school year start. In media section also nothing much has changed. I did remove specific MB cards because I didn't like them and I didn't use them. One of the biggest changes probably is the temperature section of my user interface. I've added a lot more sensors and I did leave this one just for this video. Why? Because I really am having problems with the Shelly battery devices. Those batteries simply do not last. I think that batteries on this one ran out about a month ago, but since I knew I would be recording this video, I left it here. This one will be removed and I will replace it with Xiaomi sensors like all the other sensors I have because they just work. The new thing is, and that's something that I mentioned in one of my videos, the external sensors for the humidity and temperature. These two here. They are also Xiaomi temperature and humidity sensors, and they are protected from weather, sun, rain, wind, etc. by 3D printed case. Also, one addition here is the SwitchBot humidifier and SwitchBot meter. While I'm not that sure that SwitchBot meter may be the best option if you are looking for temperature and humidity sensors, although it does work, it looks nice, it can stand on the table and has a display, which Xiaomi ones do not have, at least not these ones that are Zigbee, but there are some Xiaomi ones that use Bluetooth that have display too. This SwitchBot humidifier is really great device. I love it and we are using it daily and have been using it for a month or two. I still have to work a bit more on this integration. Maybe I will release it as a package later on. Who knows? If you would want to see it as a package, drop me a comment down below. But it allows you to start it and stop it, see the humidity, temperature, is it powered or not, does it have enabled or disabled child lock, is there water inside, is the sound enabled, and the last one is the percentage of the fog being produced. A big change in Home Assistant came this summer with the release of the Energy tab. But this is my legacy Energy tab that is still running and working great. I did add this card from the Energy dashboard here, and it really matches up all the other devices that are here. In the cameras department on the first, you may think that not much has changed, but it has. One of the cameras that was previously outside is currently inside and it is looking at the bottom of my 3D printer. Two cameras that are outside provide direct stream, but also stream over the surveillance station from Synology. I still pull the latest event images and save them in Home Assistant, but there is something that was not here last year, and this is the Nuki front door and Nuki opener. So now I can open and close or lock and unlock both the front door and also the street door to the building. And this one is not Home Assistant internal Nuki integration because unfortunately it's not been actively developed. Instead, this is a new HACS integration that I definitely recommend anybody who's having a Nuki lock to use. My still Synology or NAS card has also changed. The new thing is of course that now I'm monitoring two Synology devices, my main setup and my recording setup. A user interface of course has changed, I've added information about my unified controller and you probably have seen my other videos, but I'm also tracking status of some of the services and devices on my network. The last thing that is here is information about the Samba backup, and I'm using Samba backup add-on. That way it creates automatically snapshots or backups of my system. I save a couple of them locally and I also copy them to my Synology. That way I can keep 4 latest copies on my Home Assistant directly, while the other ones are kept on Synology on RAID disks. Well, in fact, both Home Assistant and backups are Synology, so everything is on Synology. Yeah. In the 3D printing tab, a lot has changed too. I'm not using Ender 3 Pro anymore. I have a Voron printer, Voron 2.4. And also I'm not using Marlin, instead I'm using Clipper. And it's very easy to integrate 3D printer running Clipper in Home Assistant. This here and this here is of course Shelly Plug S, which gives me information about the power usage of the printer, but also allows me to control and shut off the printer if I need. And one new addition of course is WLED, meaning these lights here are controlled from Home Assistant or from the WLED app, and that allows me to play with the lights on the printer. Some things that I'm still missing here is the MQTT integration, and I really would like to add it, but I simply didn't have time to do that. MQTT would also allow me to control the printer, not just see what's going on with printer. For example, I could issue emergency stop the print, start the print, etc. Previously, I did already mention, most of my HiGrow boards, 6 of them are currently running the ESP Home version of the firmware. Only this one here is running the Passors firmware. The reason is not that the Passors firmware didn't work. It worked, and maybe it even works better than these two here, but I know that a lot of people had issues with programming and using Python and auto-discovery scripts, etc. If you want to migrate to ESP Home, by the way, I'm still working on the ESP Home version, it would be much easier even for the noobs to do that all through the Home Assistant. But what's also new is the ability to control the two plants or watering of the two plants in my home by using the Zigbee watering station. And this is something that I also recorded video on, and if you want to try, you can tackle that project yourself. That way, when the humidity in the soil falls below some threshold, I can come here, start the water pump, it would start to water the plant, and after 2 minutes I just shut it off, or I can even run the automations that would do that for me. Battery tab has also been extended because now there are more battery powered devices. Door window sensor and temperature and humidity sensor are something that I will not be keeping. I will be removing them from my system and I will be giving it away if anybody wants them. I'm not buying any more batteries for them. Shelly button, on the other hand, which has rechargeable battery, and the kitchen motion sensor, which also has rechargeable battery, they work great. My Dooms tab is still here, and I did add some additions. For example, this DIY Geiger-Miller counter, but also this information about the earthquakes. And yeah, I will not be talking about earthquakes. Last time I was recording this video, we had a severe earthquake, and I just simply want to forget that one. But here we have information, or GDACS information, radiation level, corona information, worldwide and Croatia, radiation, and that's it. This system tab has also been expanded, changed, and in my opinion now looks much better, although I have to do something about this one here. So first we have GitHub projects. This one looks much better than it did before, and this is of course thanks to HACS. I have information about my main Home Assistant configuration, about my thermal printer project, LilyGo HiGrow project, and of course Home Assistant core. You can see how many people have viewed this project, started, forked it, or how many issues are currently open. Next, I'm not using Travis UI anymore because it changed and I moved to the GitHub. Now I'm using Workflow, and here you can see what has been run on. Remarklint, Yamlint, current version of Home Assistant, latest version of Home Assistant, beta version and dev version, and if this has passed or not. Then I have information about the latest or the version that I'm currently not using, so I can update to 2012.6. I can see if there are any updates to the add-ons, Home Assistant, Community Store, Supervisor, and as I mentioned, these are my statistics. When I update a README file, I use data from this sensor here. For example, I almost have 25,000 lines of YAML code. There is more than 2,000 entities, 250 binary sensors, 160 automations, 1,360 sensors, etc. This tab here is Shelly devices. Yeah, and I have still a lot of Shelly devices that I want to and need to integrate inside Home Assistant, but also record videos on. Some of the devices are here. This is all the Shelly devices I'm currently using. I really need to streamline this, but I wanted one tab to be able to see what's going on. As you can see, I still haven't updated to the functionality of 2021.12 because I'm not using button or push button here to update any of those devices. And this is something that I have to do. But my to-do list is very long, like delivery times for any electronics you are trying to get currently. This is my Xiaomi vacuum robot card. Of course, I did update to the latest version, which looks much better and gives you more streamlined information. Beta tab is something that I use when I create sensors or add something to Home Assistant to play with. For example, this card here populates with the lights that are currently on. If I would, for example, go here turn off those two lights, those lights are now gone. If I turn them on, they will appear on this card. Next, I'm using this also to test the Withings integration. And if anybody is interested in Withings integration, let me know down in the comment section below and I will record a separate video on it. It is currently pulling the information from the Withings temperature sensor or thermometer. I can see that the last temperature, my last temperature, so not my kids because one of them has fever, the other one doesn't not, or also not my wife's because yeah, even my wife has a fever. So last temperature measured was 36.5 degrees centigrade, skin temperature was 34.55 and the room temperature where I measured it was 24.46. And if we look at the graphs, we can see the trends in our body temperature. But Withings is a little bit strange integration. Every couple of days I receive notifications such as this one here. Integration requires configuration, and bear in mind that this data was pulled even with this notification here. So what I have to do is I have to press on check it out, I have to press on reconfigure, submit, I select continue with Google, select my account, select my name, allow this up, it says aborted, close, but the Withings warning is gone. I'm not sure why this is happening and if it's just bug with my setup, but as I mentioned, even if I don't press reconfigure, I still pull the information from the Withings thermometer. And not much else is going on in this beta or testing tab. And area cards. I've added this as soon as this was released, but I still didn't insert the images here. I think that most of the devices I have in my system have been assigned to areas, but there is still a lot of work to streamline everything here. Let's look at some of the add-ons. Energy tab. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have solar panels. I really wished I have one. And I still haven't finished the counter or the projects that I will be using to monitor the gas usage. So this is something that I'll be working in 2020. And I think I have parts somewhere on the desk. Grafana is now working. HACS, I'm really trying to keep up with both the latest version, but also I'm going daily through the new edit integrations and front ends to see if I can use anything. These are the things that I'm currently using. Calendarific, EMCS Earthquake RSS feed, which is the one previously on the Doomsday tab where I showed you we had 2 earthquakes. Next rocket launch, Blitz Ortung for detecting lightnings in the area, garbage collection, YouTube, which is used on the main screen to pull data about my latest video, Areoling IP camera integration, Ambi latest media, which will be removed, authenticated SpaceX, local Luftdaten sensor, and this allows me to pull data locally from the Luftdaten sensor instead of going to the internet. Anniversaries, Xiaomi Cloud Map Extractor, MikroTik router, and the Nuki Lock, which I definitely recommend for anybody that is using either Nuki Lock or Nuki Opener. Front end, these are some of the cards that are used. Not all have been implemented inside the UI, but I'm working on that. Node RED is disabled and I'm not using it for anything anymore. Zigbee to MQTT, you already know I'm using the latest version of the Zigbee to MQTT, and I also updated the firmware for my /2652RB board or USB controller. But I'm also playing with the Sonoff ones, and if there is interest, I may do video on that. How to run it on Synology both in Docker and Virtual Machine Manager on DSM-6 and DSM-7, while this board is currently hooked up to Raspberry Pi. In terms of add-ons, I'm using ESP Home, Samba Backup, Samba Share, Studio Code Server, Terminal SSH, and Zigbee to MQTT. Last year I had plans to use Assistant Relay, but timing was bad. Why? Because this unfortunately add-on is not supported anymore. It is lacking the maintainer, and I'm not that keen to implement something in my Home Assistant which is not maintained and can break in the future, which would require me to do a surgery and pull everything out. So, unfortunately, while I had big plans for it, it's gone. In terms of integrations, these here are the ones that I'm using in my main setup. I did record a lot of videos about bunch of them. For example, AccuWeather, Blitzortung, CO2 Signal, Coronavirus, Elgato Lights, ESP Home, Global Disaster Alert and Coordination Service, uh, Internet Printing Protocol, Luftdaten main one. I think I even recorded MikroTik, Minecraft integration, Nuki Lock, network UPS tools, OnVIF, OpenUV, Reolink camera, Shelly, both the internal MQTT and the Shelly's Discovery one, speed test, Synology, Tado, Tile, which will not live for long, Unify, Wittings. I didn't record, but if you want to see video on it, just drop me a line down below, WLED and Xiaomi One. Of course, there are some integrations that unfortunately you cannot see here, and they have been added through the YAML files. And yes, I still prefer using YAML files over the user interface, especially for doing automations. And yes, unfortunately, you still cannot open and see the automations that you created through the YAML inside the user interface. But if you missed that, yes, it's possible for you to have both automations that have been created inside YAML files and also maintain automations inside the user interface and edit them and see them there. And this has been overview of my Home Assistant in 2021. I really do hope that this video is inspiring for you and that you got some ideas on how you can improve your own system. But if you have any suggestion or idea on how to improve my own system, please leave comment down in the comment section below or leave comment in the Discord server. If you did like this video, please give me a thumbs up. It means not just a lot to me, but it also helps with the YouTube algorithms. If you still haven't subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell button so you get notified on the future video updates and streams. And I'll be seeing you next time. Merry Christmas to you and Happy New Year. Until the next time, bye bye and have fun.